Good evening, viewers. Thank you very much. Welcome back to From Christmas. This is Punchline Africa Television, and this show of the evening, 8 o'clock. We are 11 minutes past 8 o'clock East African Standard Time, broadcasting all the way from the Political Command Center. Thank you very much for your good Christmas across the globe. Wherever you are in Africa, thank you very much. Wherever you are in Kenya, peaceful Christmas. Avoided a lot of things. It has passed. Now we look forward to receiving the new year in peace. This evening, Matsanga Africa Perspective wants to look at the roadmap. Is it bumpy to 2022 Kenya elections? Kenya's elections seem to be slopes, mountains, valleys. The chairman of the IEBC a few days ago, last week, told us that several things were not in place. The type of rhetoric, type of talk, hate speech, rhetoric, which is taking place in Kenya, threats. Can this election be peaceful? Are people healed? Are people reconciled? Have we artificially reconciled? We have reconciled our bodies on top, but not inside. Is this election, will it be a bumpy election? The road to it is bumpy already. Some people, leaders in this country, are telling others not to come to their places, threatening to disrupt meetings of others. People are doing all sorts of intrigue and violence. A few weeks ago, I was explaining to my people on the same program about politics of intrigue and violence, that once you use that politics of intrigue and violence, there is a possibility that you might end up on a war path. Is Kenya aware? Are Kenyans aware of that? Of course they are. But there are people determined, very determined people, very determined leaders here who don't want to listen to President Uhuru Kenyatta's call for unity of purpose, for reconciliation. In 2018, when President Uhuru Kenyatta shook hands with Raila Amolo Odinga and brought what we call a handshake, which culminated into building of bridges initiative, which is commonly called a redemption strategy. Most of us across Africa and neighbors of Kenya were very happy that this BBI could mold the sense of togetherness, the sense of reconciliation, the sense of accountability, the sense of reparations, the sense of restitution, the sense of truth-telling, the sense of accountability, and above all, the sense of healing, which is much needed in any country. But for a country, Kenya, to go into an election with heated arguments, hatred, hate speech, threats, lack of money, 7 bills are lining up. They have lined up cases in court, in Supreme Court, about the ballot papers, about the money, about the chairman himself, who is going to conduct the elections. Are these elections, will they take place? The pandemic, the percentage today, as Daniel Wesonga will tell us the percentage, as I finish, must be prepared with the percentage. The rate of infection. The rate of infection is rising on a daily basis. It's now hitting almost going to 40%. Are people safe to conduct an election? The type of agenda in 7 months left, a tight agenda for the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, the government, to maintain peace, at the same time, to give people the democracy that they want. Is it enough time? Our guests today, and that's the way we are going to be doing our things. Samuel Tawish is our investigative journalist, editor of the Legacy Trend, also working with us, with me. He will tell us more. He will take over the show and ask many questions, and I will answer some of the questions. Our guest, Samuel Tawish, good afternoon.
Very good evening indeed, Dr. David Matsanga from the Political Command Center. Good evening to my brother Daniel Sean Wesonga, and of course our viewers watching this program in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world. My great pleasure to join you on this program, Dr.
Thank you very much, Tawish. It sounds very, very professional there. The sound is very professional despite the hiccup. How was your Christmas?
Well, I had a very nice Christmas. Indeed, of course, we celebrated together with the family right here at the heart of Kenya's capital in Nairobi. Safe, of course, for a few hiccups that you've mentioned over there. But we are trying to see how to put up with it, Dr. Because again, that is what life is. We face the hurdles. We are talking about the 2022 elections, which we are not sure whether it's going to be there or not. And there are hurdles towards, of course, having that election in August next year. And so just like the hurdles in having that election, and so is what life is. You encounter challenges, upheavals, but you must be brave enough to surmount them, because must life continue all the same, Dr. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We shall overcome. God has always kept us, and God continues to keep us. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's one of our guests tonight. The second guest tonight is none other than Daniel Wesonga. He is our investigative journalist, a man who knows one or two things, a man who understands, and is in Western Kenya. I don't know whether you have left Migori. The last time we did our show, you were at the border between Tanzania and Kenya in Migori. I don't know whether you are in Nyamira, whether you are in Nyandarua, and whether you are which part of the Okisi or Kisumu itself. Where are you, sir?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Matsanga, David. And of course, I've been able to make my way back to the city. But to our viewers who are following this conversation this evening, like we promised them, that we're going to be following up on the legacy projects that President Uhuru Kenyatta has been doing in the larger Nyanza region, as well as Western Kenya, and also parts of the Rift Valley. So as I updated you the other day, the road from Migori, from Isebania border, linking Kenya to Tanzania, all the way to Homa Bay to Kisumu is all tarmac, no single pothole on the road. And of course, also there's a road from Kitutu Chache, just joining Migori County to Kisii County. Is actually the engineer and the contractor is on site, and the construction is ongoing. And of course, also we've been we've been able to see that the road from Kisii linking Nyamira County and Bomet County all have been tarmacked, and of course adding up the road connecting Bomet County and Narok County all the way to Nyandarua County. All those roads, Dr. Matsanga, as what we had throughout this week, they have been well tarmacked all. And when you're traveling from Narok all the way to Nairobi, it should take you less than actually 1.5 hours if your car is quite good. So that tells you that President Uhuru Kenyatta has been able to do a commendable job. And owing to the fact that right now we were traveling at the time when people are going for the festivities, that tells you that these smooth roads have been able to actually make things easier for travelers across the country. Because I had breakfast at the border in Tanzania, between Kenya and Tanzania. I had my lunch in Narok, and in the evening I've been able to have tea in Nairobi. So that tells you that the connectivity is quite well, Dr. Matsanga. And also another development that was actually on the good move was the railway that flies through Mai Mahiu all the way to Naivasha, and right now all the way to Malaba border where I come from. That one is well taken care of. And also we've seen the development that is ongoing around the dry port in Naivasha, and the land around being fenced and the contractors being on site. So to me, maybe just to give our viewers the view of whatever is happening around Kenya, is that Kenya is like a construction site. You know, the president is doing a commendable job when it comes to infrastructure. We've seen so many public hospitals which have been opened in areas as interior as Chebilat, lot, you know, along that Narok Nyamira Bomet road. So that means that the president has been on track in terms of the legacy. And even as we've been coming to Nairobi, the Limuru Rironi Mai Mahiu road is actually heading to its completion. And you can see the kind of real estate projects that are happening at Tilisi. You know, people can live as far as Limuru and still work in Nairobi. And actually, when you see the value of the property that is being sold along that particular road is in the range of 20 million. That is an equivalent of the property that is being sold along Kiambu Road and Runda. So that tells you that those infrastructure, that road linkage that the president has been able to spearhead, linking Limuru, Rironi, and Mai Mahiu, has actually opened up opportunity for people who would have wished to live outside the city, the noise of the city, but as well also have value for their money. So they are getting that this place between Limuru and Nairobi is actually conducive for them. And that is why even the price of land has gone up there, and people actually, more Nairobians are actually deciding to live there because we have good roads. It only takes you a maximum of 20-30 minutes moving from Limuru to Westlands with the new road. And I believe when the Nairobi expressway will be completed, I believe it will be even a shorter time, because we still have a small snarl-ups maybe between Kangemi and other shopping centers where the construction is still ongoing. But all said and done, Dr. Matsanga, we have been from Nairobi, we have been to Kisumu, we have seen the train, we've seen the Kisumu, the city itself, we've seen Nakuru, the city itself, we've seen Homa Bay, we've seen Migori, we have seen Narok, we've seen Nyamira, Kisii, and Nyandarua, and back to Nairobi. Everything is doing quite fantastic, and the president has gotten an A+ when it comes to infrastructure, Dr. Matsanga.
Thank you very much. You went through all this, and you have the data now, right now, for the COVID-19. Do you have any data? What percentage? Was it 30? It has risen to 40?
Yes, Dr. Matsanga David, and of course, as per the data which was given today by the Ministry of Health, the positivity rate is standing at 35.0%. So you are very right when you said we are almost headed to 40%. And Maybe just to mention a single thing or two, I observed while in Kisii town that Kenyans seem to have lowered the guard when it comes to COVID precautions. Also in Narok, I realized that we have a very big mall, a mall which is hosting mega supermarkets, the national brands. But you realize that in this mall, they do not give priority in admitting in people who have face masks. And even people who are walking around, they are not bothering enough to put on these face masks, save for a few travelers who have been compelled by the vehicle that they are using and also on traffic stops to be able to adhere to these health protocols. But generally, I think Kenyans should pull up their socks and make sure that they stay at par with the Ministry of Health protocols in regards to putting on the mask and observing social distance and sanitizing their hands. That is something that I noticed that we are not doing. Even at the border, we realize that also only people who are traveling between the two countries are the ones who are being subjected to these screening at the border point. But the people who are just on their own business are allowed to enter supermarkets, do shoppings here and there without observing the health protocol. So it will be very, very maybe noble to pass it over to the authorities and those agencies which are concerned to make sure that back in Mashinani, we have people observing these health protocols. Back to you, Dr. Matsanga David.
Thank you very much. As we speak right now, Modern Coast bus is on fire on Chabakali Kabusabet Road. It is on fire. It's Coast on fire.
The boys.
We don't know whether there is any casualties yet, but the Coast bus coming all the way, it must have been either going towards Busia or coming to Nairobi. It is on fire. That is the news coming in right now. Thank you very much. Tawish, take it over now. The question here today is very clear. Is it a bumpy road map? Is it a bumpy road map to 2022 Kenya's elections? There you are, all yours, questions from you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arif, for that, of course, the open and, of course, the remarks made by my colleague, that is Sean Wesonga. Indeed, Dr. Matsanga, as we head into this 2022 general election, one which we are not even certain whether it's going to be there or not, because like you rightly said, there are a lot of hurdles as we head into these particular elections. One which really makes one not to be persuaded that even if we force ourselves to have this election, is it going to be a good election by the end of the day? Is it going to be an election without bloodshed? Is it going to be an election without so much contestation? And really the stage has been set, Dr. Ari, when you listen to politicians speak across the political divide, when you look into the lack of preparedness from the part of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, IEBC, led by its chair, Wafula Chebukati, clearly you can conclude that this is not going to be an election. And if we must have this election, it's going to be a shambolic one because IEBC is not prepared. Even Kenyans themselves do not have trust and confidence in IEBC. The politicians and the kind of hate speech and tribal animosity that is already taking shape again as we head into 2022 really poses a very major risk also. And as far as this election is concerned, I was just listening to a politician, and particularly this senator from Kakamega, Cleophas Malala, and speaking, of course, about the coming Azimio la Umoja summit in Kakamega will be happening on, I suppose, on Friday at Buhungu Stadium. And you cannot understand when people begin to demarcate region and say this is a Western bloc, that this is a Luhya nation, and no any other politician should come here, save for the Luhyas. You know, you cannot quite understand, because our constitution clearly speaks and is very express that every Kenyan, be it a politician or ordinary Kenyan, has a right to campaign and move in any part of this country without undue disadvantage. And what some of these politicians are trying to tell us is like they have already demarcated these regions, and there are regions that certain politicians should not actually go out to sell their agendas, to sell their manifestos. And if you're a Luya, then it means you must but only vote for a Luya who is on the ballot. If you're a Maasai, then you must only but vote for a presidential candidate who is a Maasai. And I think that's a very, very bad precedent we are setting for this country. Politicians are supposed to be role models in our society today. They are the people who are supposed to give and provide leadership. They are people whom we are supposed to be looking up to in terms of direction and in terms of preaching unity amongst the people of Kenya. But we have a different lot in the name of politicians, people who are only but egocentric, people who are only but selfish, people who are only but thinking about themselves and how they're going to advance their ambitions, regardless of what expense it's going to bring. So, Dr. Matsanga, it's very, very unfortunate that barely 7 months to the election, that we are not sure whether it's going to take place, that our country cannot accept to chart a common that unity of purpose agenda, that we cannot bury our tribal hatred, and we cannot accept to move in the direction that President Uhuru Kenyatta has implored all of us really to come together and put away that tribal card and think how we can unite the people of Kenya. That's very, very unfortunate. But on this particular question of election, Dr. Matsanga, this country, I can tell you, we are not quite prepared. And these are views that will be shared, or is the views that every other Kenyan, wherever they are, whether even in the diaspora, are really sharing. Because there's no way you can tell people that we have an election next year in August when IEBC itself, when it comes to the tendering process, when it comes to instilling confidence and trust in the people of Kenya, because again, we have given and mandated IEBC to be the referee of this very, very critical exercise, because it's through this exercise that we are supposed to get the leadership that the people deserve, a leadership that is going to continue with the legacy that President Uhuru Kenyatta has already set in place in terms of the developmental agenda, in terms of some of the issues regarding the infrastructures that my brother has extensively spoken on. But when you have IEBC that appears to be bending towards a particular political direction, one which appears to be favoring a certain political leaders in this country, then how can we have confidence that by the end of the day, we are going to have a sound election, that which is going to reflect the will of the people? So we are inadequately prepared for this election, Dr. Matsanga, and what we are doing now is just about setting up this country for chaos come August next year, Dr. Matsanga. So these are some of the things and really big worries and concerns that Kenyans are having out here. And it's only prudent enough that we have a conversation as a people of this region, and including interventions from some of you in terms of the advice on what needs to be done for us to have an election in the first place. Because it's not just about August next year. If there are reasons insufficient enough that we are not prepared to conduct this election, why must we force Kenyans to go into an election that the IEBC itself, a referee, is not prepared to conduct this election, Dr. Matsanga? I don't even think that the commissioners at the IEBC and the secretariat are speaking in one voice or reading from the same script as we speak now. There's so much that is coming from that particular end of the entire process of preparation that is not really exciting Kenyans, is not bringing out that atmosphere of adequate preparedness from the part of IEBC. So, Dr. Matsanga, what then I'll be asking tonight, including even the viewers who are watching this program, what is it then must we do to ensure that we have an election which is not going to be such contested like we have seen in previously, or how is it that we can have an IEBC that the people of Kenya can quite trust? What do you suppose? Do we have to remove the current IEBC commissioners? Do we need to rebrand and have a new face at the IEBC? Because what we did just previously, Dr. Matsanga, in my own observation, was more of a patch-up, like just bringing these other new commissioners to already a rotten lot that is being led by Wafula Chebukati. How do you suppose that these people can really work harmoniously and together to deliver that very, very important exercise, Dr. Matsanga? Where do we need them to start? Is it about having a new body or a new commissioners completely and making sure that we do not have Chebukati referring this exercise? I think, Dr. Matsanga, we should begin it from there. What is your perspective about the commission as is currently constituted? Does it instill confidence in the people of Kenya and some of you who are friends and observers of Kenya?
Dawish, I've been listening to you, and I am one of the few people who has been very fixed, very bold. If I were the president of the Republic of Kenya at the moment, one of the things that I would do, which I will not be, but if I were, or if I were one of the advisors, the question here is, yes, we need democracy, we need elections, we need governance, we need an election. But what type of election shall we have? What type of results shall we have? The most serious thing that worries me as an observer is the question of type of language that is being used. That's one. The man handling the elections, Wafula Chebukati, should have left this long time ago. Up to today, the things that were recommended for in 2017 have not been accomplished. The court nullified the first election of Jubilee Party on a basis of missing ballots or spoiled ballots. Where were they kept? Wafula Chebukati has not addressed that issue. Where do they keep the spoiled ballots? What do you do with the spoiled ballots? Is there the law? What do you do with them? If a ballot is spoiled, do you tear it? Do you throw it? The Kenyan constitution is mum about spoiled ballots. Are they also counted and tallied? I don't think anybody tallying those spoiled ballots. They just count them. But what do you do with them? Where do they go? That was the question that Deputy Justice Mwilu asked the panel of lawyers. What happened to the spoiled ballot papers? That mistake has not been rectified. It will never be rectified. We are going into an election again. You are singing of 7 months into an election. Kriegler report talked of a very important thing, that don't touch any, don't mess up, don't reconstitute the electoral body before 24 months. We waited, we sat down, we watched Chebukati. Chebukati, does he understand the law? Chebukati picked the BBI forms, signatures. He was the first man to even verify that these signatures are all right. The same Chebukati ran to court and said he queries what is in the bill, which he did not query. The BBI collapsed. The only route that Uhuru Kenyatta had brought, and Raila Odinga, to unite the Kenyans, to reconcile Kenyans, to forgive each other, to have a nation that if you win, maybe a winner takes all has been a problem of the democracy in Africa. Does Africa understand democracy anyway? Does Africa, how many Africans do understand? How many Africans understand the type of democracy that we have? How many? Do Africans know what an election is? What's an election? Do we need elections in Africa? These are some of my questions, my worries. Because across the whole continent, everybody is talking about the election. But look at what has just happened in Somalia today. The president wakes up from his wrong side of the bed. He sacks the prime minister. The prime minister said, I'm not leaving. So there is a coup. Everybody is talking, waiting. Who will blink first? It's because of elections. Across in Uganda a few days ago, few weeks ago, you saw an explosive by-election where people even wanted to kill each other because of an election. Across, down in Zimbabwe, people are looking at election. 2023 is too far, but already the heat is on. George Soros has pumped in money to give money to the opposition. But do people understand what elections is? In Ethiopia, what killed Ethiopia today? When Dr. Ahmed declared that there will be an election, opposition came up and said, no, we can't have an election when we have no reforms. When he refused and went ahead to conduct an election, the other parties boycotted an election. It sparked the rivalry that has been there before for a long time. Ethiopia today lies in chaos. And by the way, most of us have been doing what we call silent diplomacy. I've done a lot of silent diplomacy with the Tigrayan people, told them that you need a state called Ethiopia. We need a country. You are all brothers. Compared to Obasanjo, and I'm told Obasanjo married somebody of 19 years. Did you see that happen? It was a very colorful marriage. I don't know. I am still waiting for Nigerian newspapers and television to invite me and ask what will he do with this past younger grandchild. But let's look at what goes on across Africa. Conde lost an election. Conde lost, changed the constitution. He was overthrown. In Mali, Keita and others were overthrown. In Chad, an election caused bloodshed. The president was killed, assassinated. After being sworn in, he went to the battlefield. He had won an election. People were not happy. They killed him. In South Sudan, there is chaos because of elections. Plenty of it. At the moment as we speak, some parts of South Sudan are not passing. Do we need to go into a bad election in Kenya when we can see all these glaring examples? We can see them. You can see the signs. Let's listen to one of the clips. The production team put one of the leaders in this country speaking and see whether this is a mood that we want. Production team.
Na tumemwalika hapa ni mtoto wetu. Na sisi kitu nataka kuambia wazi, oka ni nyoka isiyo na kichwa na haina mkia. Because there is no leadership in oka. Na hatuwezi kungojea tuchelewe pale. Na farasi ni wawili. Yeye aje asiseme mimi siwezi kuja. Siku ile nilimwalika si alikuja. Na hakutumia nduru yake hata moja, hata kutengeneza dayas. Na ni mtoto wetu. Awaje kutumiwa vibaya na Malala. Kwa ajili.
Let me tell you, this is historical. It has not started with President Uhuru. And I was the first person to go back to your clips to advise the deputy president to have a minute with the retired president, President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, so that Moi would have given him an extra 5 minutes as per how he ascended to power when he was a vice president. He's the only first vice president in the Republic of Kenya to ascend to power after the death of our founding father, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And Moi knew, even if he was representing President Jomo Kenyatta in all AU meetings in Africa, Kenyatta used not to fly, Kenyatta used not to go out. But when he comes back, and Mzee Kenyatta is at Thingirawa Iregi Nakuru, with the former provincial police officer Mungai, the director of CID Mr. Nderi, and Mbiu Mwana wa Koinange, and Mungai, who was the foreign affairs minister, President Mo would not be allowed to go there. He stopped at the door at the first gate and he goes home. The following day, he could not complain to Kenyatta that your people chased me away. He went, he removed his pencil, he counted years of the old man and his, and then he persevered. Until when he finished his term, when his time of ascending to power came. When he was introducing him in any rally, he could hardly take 2 minutes. He says, Your Excellency, this is your meeting. I'm only 2 minutes, address your people. But you are my deputy in a public rally, you want to articulate government policies.
Just looking at that clip, one would think, are we in the right place on this planet? Mzee Atwoli is warning us. He has already said, Okoa is nyoka, inamukia. So these are some of I wanted to give you, because usually when our show plays programs that depict the deputy president, he's all over the whole place calling us so many names with his group of mafia operators called Tanga Tanga. I have been emphasizing the issue of the mafia group, the Tanga Tanga, the mafia. You see, some people have not understood me why I brought that topic. But when you look at events, if you are being handled by a godfather, you are being told to go and insult people. The godfather will protect you. But the day the godfather suspects you, I think most of you have been seeing these films. Daniel, you're a very good film, like Goa, like me. I like films. Most of my time I spend them on, especially studying the mafia, how the Chicago mafias operate, and the Sicily mafia. I have taken interest in the mafia of those who killed Aldo Moro. The state can do nothing when you are under a godfather, because it could be the godfather killing you. There is all the likelihood that you'd be selling an African child, any child, drinking in several cups, would not know where he would drink poison. If you are drinking, using several cups to drink water, you don't know which cup has poison. So, this compounds even our election. You have seen in that clip, the mood is not our good mood. It's not at all. People are not even, people are saying we go for it. But when you see on the ground the type of preparations where people, the chief man, were preparing for these elections, you get worried. Daniel, I pass the baton to you. For me, I still stand. Kenyans need to do a BBI first. Kenyans need to do a reconciliation first. Kenyans need to look at the prospects of postponing these elections. The MPs should sit down and think ahead. There's one point I wanted to not to miss. Ballot papers are being printed in Greece. Surely can you print ballot papers in Greece? You are printing your ballot papers in a country whose economy is saturated. What will stop one of the candidates to go and pay $1 million to the printing machine for him to be printed his own papers and come and fill the the ballot papers across in areas where he has a stronghold. Tell me, I've been crying about this contract of Greece. Nobody seemed to be listening to me. But as usual, I will remain as a Mugo wa Kibilo. I am learning a lot of Kikuyu, Nikki. So let's go there, Nikki. I now say, I am a Gentile preaching to the Jews. I'll remain that way. Every statement I make now, I add that word, a Gentile preaching to the Jews. Because I've seen the danger. I'm a graph. A graph. My neck is very far. I've seen something which is not tying. A bad election is as good as a war. If you don't do it nicely, you will have a war. Back to you, Wesong.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Matsanga David. And of course, maybe in that breath, I will just propose that maybe as a television station, we take an opinion poll on how many Kenyans actually do trust that IEBC can conduct a free and fair election. And I believe me, Dr. Matsanga, the results are going to shock you, because no one on the opposition side, no one in government side actually believes that Wafula Chebukati can be able to spearhead a free, fair, and credible election. And up to this juncture in particular, we've seen even the CS of Treasury, Kuriatan, saying that the officials at the IEBC, starting from the top, Chebukati himself, they have actually inflated the budget so that they fleece the people of Kenya of their hard-earned money. So that means that these are people who are not interested in overseeing a free and fair election, rather than maybe enriching themselves through the positions that they hold. And also, in the recent past, the IEBC has not conducted itself in an amplitude that will actually be able to evoke the confidence of the people of Kenya in the process that they're actually spearheading of preparing for the 2022 general election. And like you mentioned in your preamble, Dr. Matsanga, that an election is not just a one-day event. It is a process. A wise man once said that if you give me a duty to cut down our tree, I'll spend more time to sharpen my axe than and spend less time actually in spending a lot of time maybe cutting down the tree, because when you sharpen the tree, when you prepare yourself, then it means you'll take shorter time to actually accomplish your duty. But as it is right now, the IEBC of 2017 is still the IEBC of today. Wafula Chebukati has not worked on the recommendations that the Supreme Court gave him during the ruling that was in 2017 that bungled that particular election. Wafula Chebukati has not been able to even to do an audit of the funds that were allocated in the previous election, and which is a matter before the court, and the court actually ordered that an audit be done to see how money was actually spent. We heard the Chicken Gate scandal. The IEBC has not solved that. The other day, they were actually giving a tender to a company that had been given a tender to spearhead or print the ballot papers in Uganda, and the work that they did is actually out there on the street. People can see the way the opposition in Uganda is crying over the fraud that was on that particular election. And today, Dr. Matsanga, you mentioned that they have gone to Greece, a country that is ruled by the cartels, a country that has been hijacked by the mafia, a country whose currency is actually collapsing and the economy is in tatters in Europe. And therefore, this particular country, it has the greatest risk of having these ballot papers being interfered with, so long as who pays the piper has enough money to go there and meet the officials of this particular company that has been given the tender. And that is where the fraud in IEBC starts. Someone might go to court and actually be able to challenge the process by which this company was given the tender. Or maybe something might happen because of the loophole that are there by giving a country like Greece to print the ballot papers. A loophole might come up which might actually bring some evidence strong enough to be able to bungle maybe the 2022 general election. So therefore, to me, Dr. Matsanga, IEBC has not shown the willingness, neither has it shown the amplitude, neither has it shown the readiness to handle the 2022 presidential election. Then I'll go back to your question. Why is the need of holding the election if the IEBC cannot deliver a free, fair, credible, and verifiable election, which is as per its mandate in office? Then the answer will be that will be a null and void expedition. It means even if Kenyans go on 8th of August next year to cast their ballots, and we still have the IEBC as currently constituted, as currently led by Wafula Chebukati, then we're going to be wasting maybe another resources in going to the courts and actually fighting all the way until the election is bungled. And that will be a loss to the people of Kenya. So preparedness is everything in this election. And as far as IEBC is concerned, we are not ready for this particular election. Today, if you were to take one of the two, the contenders for the presidential election, and ask them if they have faith in IEBC, and if IEBC was to give them results of the August 8th election that is to come next year, they'll tell you they cannot accept until one or two things are done. Why hasn't IEBC worked on these things? Instead, they're actually asking for more money where the Treasury CS says that they actually have inflated the budget so that they fleece the Kenyans. So we are having a web here, or an intricate web of theft, thuggery, and ineptitude coming from the side of the IEBC, which is an environment which does not guarantee the people of Kenya a free, credible, and verifiable election. And like you said, Dr. Matsanga, that an election which is not properly prepared is equal to a war that has not been yet fought, because it's just a matter of time before the country blows in regards to this matter of election and preparedness. So if the IEBC is not going to do its mandate, if the IEBC is going to be left unchecked, if Wafula Chebukati is not going to be told that Kenyans deserve a free, fair, and verifiable election, then this country is as well headed to the brink of collapse, and we might go even the Chad way, or maybe the Libyan way, because we do not have an electoral body which is serious about this particular election. I wish, Dr. Matsanga, that these political contenders, the top presidential contenders, would stop about bickering about these laws in terms of coalition formation and all these other who is going to join who and who is going to do what, so that they come together and they discuss about how they can be able to achieve a free and fair election, and holding the IEBC accountable for this, and see also on how to get proper leadership at the top of the IEBC, other than the leadership that we are having in Wafula Chebukati. So to me, Dr. Matsanga, that will be the priority. That should be the priority of those ones who are vying in the next coming election. But as it is, Dr. Matsanga, they leave this duty to activists like you, Dr. Matsanga. They leave this duty to people who have no interest in the election, whichever way the election goes, but who nonetheless feel that this country should go into the right direction. People who are actually sending themselves out there and making sure that IEBC is held to the accountable on its actions. But the politicians themselves, they are busy campaigning there, not knowing that without a stable IEBC, without a reasonable IEBC, we might not end up having an election at all, leave alone having a bungled election. I submit, Dr. Matsanga.
Thank you very much, Tawish. Any other comment before we come to an end? We shall continue with this discussion tomorrow. You can see, to me, the road is still bumpy. What's your comment?
Well, Dr. Matsanga, I think clearly that is what all of us tend to really agree. And I share with you a reasoning that perhaps Kenya could consider even to postpone the coming election so that we can have an adequate preparation on the part of IEBC and also politicians, because there are first things that must be done first, including even making sure that we go back to that redemption strategy, including that the Building Bridges initiative and whatever was anchored in the BBI has been realized. Like what President Uhuru Kenyatta said the last time during the Jamhuri, and I think this has been what he's been insisting all along, that he still believes and is of the conviction that the Building Bridges initiative would have provided a magic jab to the so many perennial problems that Kenya has been facing, especially around elections, and of course the tribal animosity that has been in this country, and the feeling of some people like they're marginalized or they're left out in terms of the sharing of the national cake or the sharing of the government positions. So, Dr. Matsanga, I suppose these are things that we must do first. In any case, this election should not be handled as though it is cast in stone. This election must not be done in such a way that it must be done anyway, regardless of whether we are adequately prepared or not, regardless of whether Kenyans have confidence and trust in the IBC or not, regardless whether politicians are changing tone and embracing that unity of purpose or not. I think we must go back to the drawing board and ask ourselves, what is it that we must do first before we get into an election? Because the Kenyan people are also really very tired for us to have a contested election every other time. For the simple reason is that we wake up just one day. We've had all these years from 2017. We could not sit down and decide that we must have an IBC, of course, constituted well early enough so that they can acquaint themselves to the task ahead of them. They can be able to really to work together and get to understand what is it that needs to be done so that we do not what happened in 2017 and the previous elections does not reoccur come the 2022 general election, Dr. Matsanga. Just like you've said, we are like warthogs. I mean, we forget so easily. We have forgotten where we have come from. We have forgotten what made this election to be, of course, dismissed. And we have forgotten that we needed really to follow up with the regular recommendation and see, for example, that we need to have IEBC in place at least 2 years to the election. We have even been castigating a process, of course, the Building Bridges initiative that would have seen us, of course, if not really giving, giving the medication to all the problems, at least we would have made steps way ahead in terms of having a nation that all people are really proud of and everybody can trust and say, whoever wins an election is no big problem as long as, of course, all those other structures have been dealt with and nobody will feel like they've been left out. But as things stand out, Dr. Matsanga, there's a lot really to worry. There's a lot to fear. The panic about election, the panic that's really accompanies election every other time. It's not different from this time, even as we are continue talking about the 2022 general election, Dr. Matsanga. So I fully agree with you. That we really need to sit down as a people and ask ourselves, what is it that we need to do first before we rush into having an election? This election is not going anywhere. Kenya will still remain. And this election is done for the purpose and prosperity of this nation. And if that election threatens our moral fabric, if that election is one which it threatens our unity, if that election is what really portends to tear this country apart, must we have this election before we can be able to remedy and be able to correct some of the ills that come along with this election? So I agree with you that it's time we begin that candid discussion about postponing the election so that we can put everything into perspective. We can have everything in place. We can have people, even the Building Bridges initiative and the recommendations that came with it implemented before we get into the election. That way, Dr. Matsanga, we can inspire confidence to the people of Kenya and to the region. Remember, every of the other people and the continent is looking up to Kenya in terms of this democracy thing, and in terms of guidance, and in terms of instilling hope that a democracy is not just used as an event. It should be something that we are going to embrace and have as a culture that people can trust this election is going to be aware on how we have governance. But if what we are just rushing into, Dr. Matsanga, is what it is, then I can tell you this is a recipe for chaos, and this country is threatened and will be torn apart if we insist to have that election up until we have handled and dealt with all those issues that people of Kenya and even the rest of the region continues to really monitor and raise concerns about. I submit, Dr.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether Wesonga has anything before I close. If there is nothing, I just want to say one thing.
Yeah, all right.
You have something?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Matsanga David. And of course, my parting shot, I'll agree with my brother Tarwish Ole Sassina that there's no rush in having this election if the IEBC is not prepared. If Kenyans are not ready, even neither are both sides of the political divide to accept the results that will come in this body. Let's first of all fix our electoral system, and then we can talk about the elections. I submit, Dr. Matsanga.
Thank you very much, viewers. Our guest today, thank you very much. Thank you very much for touring the country. I can see you started in Nairobi, Nakuru, Kericho, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, Kisii, Nyamira, Bomet, Narok, Nyandarua, and back to Nairobi. Thank you very much, Wesonga, for the legacy trend and for having checked all those roads. And I want to thank President Uhuru Kenyatta for having stayed the course despite the obstacles, challenges. He has found solutions. Kenya still remains a beacon of hope that one day Kenya will rise, bury the differences, reconcile, heal. There is need for healing in this country. A bad election, a badly prepared election, is like a war. The result of such an election will bring war on the streets, in the villages, in the valleys. More so, you see two men who have been on opposite sides, and all of them, none of them could bring fast to concede. There is a need to start talking about these elections, whether they have been prepared, whether preparations have been adequate. Bumpy, are the preparations bumpy? Yes. If the Treasury is saying Mr. Chebukati is inflating bills, bills so that he can eat some money, how long in 7 months will it take for someone to bring this conclusive election, to have viable, transparent, agreeable results? My God tells me, as Mugo wa Kibiro, that Kenya should have started with a BBI first, a reconciliation, building of bridges of harmony. Then they can go to these elections. I therefore end this show by calling on Kenyans, those on both sides, to start helping the next 7 months or so, to see a legacy, either to begin debating on whether election can be conducted in the format it is now, or they think of, with the rate of infection rising to almost 30–40%, you don't know months coming after this Easter, after this Christmas, people are coming back, and to cities and other places in the villages, the rate could go up. Is there a way we can salvage this country? Stop hatred, unite the country. It's the only hope of Africa. It's the only country that we look at. We look at Kenya as the model of Africa. If you come to Africa and you have not gone to Nairobi, you can't tell anybody in London you were in Africa. Somebody will think, which place of that? But if you say Nairobi, everybody knows it's Kenya. Kenya is a beacon of hope. Kenya needs to change the behavior around elections. It has done good democracy. It is perseveres, challenges, but these ones are beyond their imagination. The Electoral Commission chairman, Wafula Chebukati, should leave. If I were Wafula Chebukati, I would not want to be dragged into an election. I can get my money quickly, halfway, and I rest home. If Wafula Chebukati said today I'm resigning, they will pay him the money. Why do you wait to plunge the country into chaos? The preparations are not good. The preparations are half-baked. The road is bumpy. I shudder. Thank you very much. Across the bridge, there is no sorrow. Good evening, all of you. This station is for Africa by Africa, with Africa. Ciao.